To enjoy this episode of Forensic Tales ad-free, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Forensic Tales.
Forensic Tales discusses topics that some listeners may find disturbing. The contents of this episode may not be suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
In 2010, a well-known veterinarian was mysteriously found dead in a driveway after walking away from a car crash. Initial evidence at the scene suggested it was an accident, but as more of the forensic evidence revealed itself, the vet's death was ruled a homicide. What exactly happened to this doctor, and who might know more than what they're saying? This is Forensic Tales, episode number 309, The Unexplained Death of Dr. Robert Stonebreaker. Before we get into the morning that he was found, we need to understand who Robert Stonebreaker was, because he was so much more than what happened to him. Robert grew up in Southern California, specifically in Los Angeles. After graduating from Cal Poly, he earned a degree in veterinary medicine from UC Davis with honors in 1987. This vet program at UC Davis is consistently ranked as one of the best vet schools in the nation. It's ranked for education, research, and animal care. So it's not only an accomplishment to be accepted there, but it's an even bigger deal to graduate with honors. And by all accounts, this was something Robert was very proud of. Ever since he was a kid, he wanted to become a well-respected veterinarian. And that's exactly how his life turned out. At first, Robert worked at a few different small exotic animal hospitals. But in 1989, he started a mobile vet practice, which allowed him to travel both nationally and internationally. He got to work at zoos. He got to visit international exotic animal parks. This was a very niche thing that he was doing. He wasn't necessarily treating your common household dogs or cats. Robert was a very specialized animal doctor. By 1990, he began working at the Del Mar Veterinary Hospital near San Diego and acquired Free Flight, an exotic bird sanctuary. Then in 1998, he bought the Del Mar Vet Hospital after the original doctor retired. He also changed the name to the Animal and Bird Hospital of Del Mar. So at this point in his career, he owned a nonprofit bird sanctuary, Free Flight, and he also owned his own vet hospital. He was essentially living his dream. He loved animals, especially small exotic ones, and now he owns his own business. This was everything he had worked for. Outside the vet practice, Robert lived in Encinitas with his wife Pam and their 3 kids, Kristen, Kelly, and Ryan. The girls were 12 and 14. Ryan was just 4. He was a well-liked member of his community, successful, hardworking. That brings us to January 17th, 2010, the day Robert Stonebreaker was found dead. That morning, San Diego County Sheriff's deputies were called to a home in Rancho Santa Fe, a nice suburb of North San Diego. Robert had been found dead on the homeowner's driveway, and in a strange twist that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this case, the homeowner recognized Robert as his vet. But beyond that, they didn't have any other relationship. What was missing from the scene was Robert's car, a 2008 Porsche. The night before, the Porsche had been found in a 15-foot ravine off the 6700 block of Paseo de Lencias in Rancho Santa Fe. It looked like Robert was driving north and then lost control on a curve. It's also important to mention that this location was only about a few hundred feet from where Robert's body would eventually be found the next day in the residential driveway. When the California Highway Patrol responded to the call about the crashed vehicle, they didn't do anything besides tow it. They checked the whole area and there was no sign of any blood. There was no sign of anything to indicate that the driver had any serious trauma, said CHP Sergeant Lewis Hall at the time of the crash. So you have Robert's crashed Porsche discovered on the night of January 16th. Then his body was found a few hundred feet away on the 17th. So the initial thought was that he had to have crashed his car and then maybe tried to walk home or get help. But before he could make it, he collapsed in the driveway from his injuries. Just because they didn't find any blood near the car didn't mean there weren't injuries. Maybe Robert assumed he was fine, but had some sort of major internal trauma that he didn't know about. So that's the initial thought. This was a tragic accident. But then came the autopsy that seemed to only raise more questions, not answers. The most shocking results of the autopsy were that the medical examiner didn't believe Robert's injuries were consistent with a car crash. Instead, the ME believed he died from a blow to the head. His injuries were the result of a violent attack. And it wasn't just the physical exam of the body that made the authorities question what really happened. They believe the forensics have determined that Robert was killed where they found his body in the driveway, not the location of his Porsche. There wasn't a single drop of blood either on the car or anywhere around it. All the blood evidence was on the driveway surrounding his body. If he had somehow smashed his head inside of the car, there should have been some evidence of that. There wasn't. After Robert was involved in the crash, he would have had to walk a few hundred feet to that driveway. Now, to be clear, there are conflicting reports about exactly how far away this house was. Some reports say that it was only about 100 feet away from the crash site, while other reports say that it was close to 1,000. Either way, it was only about a few hundred feet away. It wasn't some far distant place. But for Robert to get to the driveway, he would have had to climb a fence. Most of these properties were either gated or had fences around them. So for him to end up on that homeowner's driveway, he would have had to climb a fence. He wouldn't have been able to walk directly toward it. So based on the evidence, the Porsche, the crash site, the head injury, the forensics at the house, Robert's death was listed as a homicide. The ME does not believe he died as a result of a car crash. This means someone killed Robert and inflicted those head injuries. They hopped that same fence and killed him. For what reason? Nobody knows. We'll talk more about that when we get into some of the theories. For the first couple of months, the investigation was quiet. Whatever the San Diego Homicide Unit was working on, they didn't say publicly. But that shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. The police don't usually tell the public everything they have, especially in a murder case like this. Or maybe it was because they didn't know much. More on that later on. At the same time law enforcement was doing their jobs, Robert's family and wife Pam were left shocked and mourning their loss. From everything I read, Robert was a family man. He loved his vet hospital and the animals just as much as he loved his family. And the people of this part of San Diego were trying to wrap their head around who could have wanted Dr. Stonebreaker dead, this beloved vet. Someone you took your furry family member to when they were sick. It just didn't make any sense. I think if this case were as simple as it sounds, Robert died in a tragic car accident, people would have been more understanding. It's tragic and it's sad, but people can understand that accidents happen. It's one of the sad parts of life that we all experience. So when the authorities came out and said this was a homicide, people in San Diego were shocked. No one wanted to think that someone in their neighborhood could have murdered the local vet. But behind closed doors, the authorities had their suspicions about who they thought was behind this. Early on, authorities suspected Robert's wife, Pam. They never publicly named her as a suspect, but they refused to say that she isn't. Here's why. Right after the death, she stepped in at his vet hospital. To some people, this might seem like the logical thing for a wife to do. This was her husband's business, and she needed to get in there and hire additional doctors to keep the doors open. But for law enforcement, they kept a close eye on her. As it turns out, Robert had a lot of life insurance. He had about $3 million worth of policies under his name. And who was the sole beneficiary of those policies? His wife, Pam. At the time of his death, he had 3 policies from the Guardian Life Insurance Company, 1 from Western Reserve Life Insurance of Ohio, and 1 from Union Security. All of these policies had been in existence since 1997, so they weren't necessarily taken out right before this happened. They'd been out for a few years. The 3 policies from the Guardian totaled about $2 million. The one from the Western Reserve, was about $250,000. And the one from Union Security was about $525,000. I know many of you are going to think, okay, what's the big deal? Most people, especially parents, have life insurance policies. We want to protect our family in the event of our passing. Plus, none of these policies were brand new. It would have been much more suspicious if they had been opened just months before this happened. And as far as I can find in my reporting, Robert himself took out all of these policies himself. So it wasn't like this was something that Pam was trying to hide from anyone. We've covered a lot of cases involving life insurance policies on the show before. And in a lot of these cases, the spouse takes out the policies without the other one knowing, or they're taken out right before someone dies. But I also know that to some of you, that sounds suspicious. To some, that's way too much money in life insurance policies. Something's fishy. And if there's someone out there standing to gain from Robert's death, it's the wife. So after Robert's death, Pam contacted these insurance companies asking for the payout. She was the primary beneficiary. This is what life insurance is for. Her husband and father of her children was dead. She needed the money, all $3 million of it. But the companies wouldn't automatically pay it. They cited the state's Slayer statute, probate code 252 and 250. In California, there is a law that prevents a person who intentionally kills another from profiting from their victim's death through either inheritance or other benefits. So if someone is accused of murdering someone, they aren't allowed to collect on their benefits, including life insurance policies. And that makes sense, right? We don't want people going around killing people so that they can collect money from them. That law makes sense to most people. So in this case, that's what the insurance company said. Pam was considered a suspect in Robert's death and therefore wouldn't be able to collect even a penny. For San Diego investigators, $3 million is good motivation to kill. People kill for even less, but that's a lot of money we're talking about. So the question became, could Pam have taken out her husband in order to profit? Eventually, Pam filed a lawsuit against the insurance companies, Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Western Reserve Life Insurance Company of Ohio, and Union Security Insurance Company. In her lawsuit, Pam alleged that her husband, Robert Stonebreaker, died on January 16th, 2010, and that the insurance companies refused to pay life insurance benefits under the policies. In the court records, she fully maintains her innocence, saying, "I did not kill my husband, Bob Stonebreaker, nor did I have anything whatsoever to do with his death. I do not know who killed Bob or why he was killed." End quote. Her legal claim was breach of contract, failure to pay, and breach of the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing against the insurers. But all three insurance companies kept saying their hands were tied. If law enforcement considered her a suspect, which they were told that she was, they weren't allowed to give her the money. And because the manner of death was listed as a homicide, that just added more confusion. Had this case been a simple car crash case, she would have gotten the money almost instantly. But at this point, Pam is angry. Not only did she maintain her innocence, but she also said she needed the money. She just lost her husband, who made most of the family's income. She had children she needed to take care of. She now runs the vet hospital. She said she really needed this money. This battle between her and the insurance companies went on for months, years. Things got so heated that the insurance companies even filed a countersuit. They said they weren't refusing to pay, they just needed the court to decide who the rightful beneficiary was. Is it Pam? Should it go to the kids? Does the money go to his estate? Some of the insurance companies even deposited the money with the court so that they wouldn't be held liable if they paid the wrong person. This battle between Pam and the insurance companies went on for years, back and forth with motions, hearings, arguments over evidence. Even today, according to CBS 8, Pam has only been able to collect on about $400,000. So these lawsuits weren't going anywhere until the official police investigation got some clues. But there weren't many. They really struggled to identify a suspect. They might have looked at Pam initially, but there really wasn't any evidence against her. To better understand what could have happened, let's talk about January 16th and January 17th and what we know about those 2 days. Now, to be fair, most of this information comes from Pam, but here's what we do know. When Robert left the house on January 16th around 6 o'clock p.m., he didn't tell anyone where he was going. Pam wasn't home at the time, and he didn't tell his daughter, who was home. I think that could be an important detail. If we knew where he was going, that might help fill in some of the gaps. But as far as what I could find, we don't know where he was going. Something interesting I came across online was that some people say Robert didn't have any business driving in Rancho Santa Fe that night. It was a Saturday night, it was cold. There were even reports that it had been raining. So it has to make you wonder, what was he doing there in the first place? This time of year can be rough. The holidays are near and they're supposed to be joyful, but for so many, they bring stress about food, weight, and body image. Add in all the talk around weight loss medications, and it can feel overwhelming to know what's best for you. That's why Hers is here to support your journey so that you can feel your best. If prescribed, you get medications as part of a doctor-developed weight loss program, complete with ongoing care, check-ins, dosage, and medication adjustments, and access to 24/7 online support at no additional cost. No hidden fees and no membership fees. Whether you want to lose weight, grow thicker, fuller hair, or find relief for anxiety, Hers has you covered. Visit forhers.com/tales to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's forhers.com/tales. Forhers.com/tales. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded drug products are not approved or evaluated for safety, effectiveness, or quality by the FDA. Prescription required. See website for full details, important safety information, and restrictions. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased. According to Pam's phone records, she made 2 unanswered phone calls to his cell phone. The first was sometime in the evening on the 16th when he didn't make it home for dinner, and the second call was placed the next morning, the day that his body was discovered. But that same day, Pam was out of town at a volleyball tournament with their daughter and several other people. They had left the house around 5 a.m. on the 17th to get to this tournament. She says it wasn't until an investigator for the San Diego County Medical Examiner's Office called her that she learned about his death. The investigator told me that Bob was dead and that the cause of death was a head injury. This telephone call was when I learned for the first time that Bob had died, part of her written statement said. People looked at this in 2 different ways. Number 1, some people thought this made her look totally innocent. She made 2 different phone calls to him. She didn't know he died until the police called her. She wasn't even in town the day that Robert's body was found. She's innocent. But others thought, why wouldn't she be more concerned when he didn't answer on the 16th? If Robert didn't make it home for dinner, why didn't she raise any red flags? Shouldn't she be concerned that her husband didn't make it home the night before? I think to some people that was a huge red flag. People also thought that she could have hired someone to take him out. She probably wasn't the one who did the killing, but maybe she had someone do it on her behalf. Now, full disclosure, there's 0 evidence suggesting, proving, hinting that's what happened. I haven't found anything suggesting that this was a hired kill, and that's never been something the police have reported on. For Robert's loved ones, they want answers. If this actually was a car accident and the ME was wrong about the forensics, they want to know. If the medical examiner interpreted the forensics correctly, they want to know that as well. And they want to know who's responsible for his death. But getting those answers hasn't been easy. In fact, to this day, there's never been a single arrest. Robert's case is still very much considered an open and unsolved homicide. But that doesn't mean his family has stopped seeking answers. To try and keep the investigation moving forward, Robert's brother and sister-in-law offered a $10,000 reward. This was money that came out of their own pockets. Somebody knows something out there, Kathy Stonebreaker told the San Diego Union Tribune. They hope that money is an incentive for someone with information to finally come forward. There's even a telephone number that's been set up to receive tips. All included at the end of the episode. I'll also include contact information for the San Diego homicide detectives as well as Crime Stoppers. Let's now discuss suspects other than Pam Stonebreaker. Who are the other suspects? The second person looked at was the homeowner of the driveway where Robert's body was discovered. He was the one who came out of his house, saw his body, and called the police. So he was the first person to find out what had happened. He also knew Robert because he was apparently his family's vet. He took his animals to the pet hospital, so they had some type of relationship. No one said they were best friends or anything like that, but they did know each other. So for investigators, they had to look at this as a possibility. It wasn't like Robert was a total and complete stranger to this person. But after some digging, there wasn't anything to this angle of the investigation. There was never any evidence suggesting this man had anything to do with it. He was just a witness. And I think it makes you wonder, even if he had, why would he just leave Robert's body in his driveway and call the police? It just didn't make much sense. Well, some people online think the opposite. They wonder why Robert chose this guy's house in the first place. He just got into a car crash, suffered some type of head injury, then walked a few hundred yards specifically to this guy's house. Is it possible the homeowner didn't know who he was and attacked him? Maybe he saw this stranger walking up his driveway and got scared. Once again, there's no evidence suggesting that's what happened. That's just what some people think. With all of the forensic evidence suggesting that's the location where Robert was killed, some people think it's connected to the homeowner. Maybe as an accident, maybe as mistaken identity. Nobody knows. Another theory I came across was that this could have been a case of road rage. A lot of this theory revolves around speculation, but the idea is that maybe Robert crashed due to a road rage incident. Maybe he was the aggressive driver, or maybe someone else was. But whoever the aggressive driver was, Robert ended up going into the ravine and crashing his Porsche. After that, he got out of his car and the other driver confronted him. Robert may have tried to run away toward the house where he hopped the fence. The other person followed him and attacked him in the driveway. As you can see, that's a lot of speculation. Without many details about what caused the car crash, without any witnesses, without any video footage, it's almost impossible to say. To me, this theory is just as good as any other. There's just no evidence supporting that this was a road rage incident. Along the same lines is this theory. Someone was following him to rob or kill him for some unknown reason. Maybe Robert realized that he was being followed and that's what caused the crash. Then after that, similar to the road rage theory, someone followed him, hopped the fence, and attacked him in the driveway. I think this is a good time to stop and talk about the fence. We've talked a lot about it. Just like so many other parts of this story, we don't have much information about the fence itself. We don't know how tall it was or how difficult it would be to climb. We also don't know much about the head injuries. If the medical examiner was wrong and Robert actually hit his head during the crash, would he still be physically able to climb a fence? Or is it possible that he climbed the fence looking for help from the homeowner and fell, injuring his head? That, at least, explains some of the confusing forensic evidence. All the blood was found in the driveway. So could that have been a result of falling from the fence? Next theory, could this have been a stranger attack? Robert got into an accident. He walks away from the crash looking for help, and someone attacks and kills him. Maybe he hopped the fence trying to get away from this person and he was followed. For some, this theory makes perfect sense. It again explains why no blood was found at the crash site, why there was no blood trail leading to the house. The entire murder happened in that driveway. Someone, a stranger, followed Robert after the crash. But for others, it answers nothing. It's pure speculation. Why would a complete stranger target him that night? If someone witnessed him driving off his car off the road, why would they see that as an opportunity to kill him? There's no evidence Robert was robbed. Nothing was reported stolen from his person or his vehicle. So that just seems like such a far-fetched theory. Before discussing where the case stands today, I've read discussions online about whether someone could have driven Robert's car after the murder. All of the theories we've talked about so far suggest Robert was the driver. But is it possible that someone else drove it and crashed it? Here's how that theory goes. After attacking and hitting Robert over the head, this person then took the Porsche and crashed it to make it look like a car accident. Now, of course, that's not the best plan because we know Robert's body was found outside of the car. If this person was hoping to make it look like a car crash, why not put Robert's body inside of the car instead of leaving it on the driveway? So, this theory definitely has some holes. There are still a lot of unanswered questions about the car crash itself. To this day, the police haven't released much when it comes to how the crash happened. The same could be said about Robert's autopsy. None of that information has been made public. All we know is that his death was listed as a homicide and that the ME thought his injuries weren't consistent with a car crash. But that's it. The autopsy itself hasn't even been made public. So this entire case relies on the opinion of basically one individual, the medical examiner who performed the autopsy and their interpretation of the forensics. This case reminds me so much of the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed story. This is a case that we covered in an earlier episode of the show. John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer, was found dead, and his girlfriend at the time, Karen Reed, was accused of killing him with her SUV. But Karen was eventually acquitted of the murder because the medical examiner who performed John O'Keefe's autopsy said none of the injuries were consistent with being struck by a vehicle. That's very similar to the situation we have here. Robert Stonebreaker's head injuries weren't consistent with a car crash, and given the lack of blood at the scene, they think he was killed elsewhere. So that's why they feel like they have a very strong case against either his wife, Pam, the homeowner, or someone else they don't know about yet. It all comes down to what the medical examiner believes about Robert's head injuries. If they were consistent with a car crash, this story would be over right here and right now. If this were a simple car crash case, you could say that Robert crashed his car, suffered a fatal brain injury, was dazed and confused, and walked to that driveway where he eventually lost his life to the injuries. It would be a relatively open and shut case. But that's not what the forensic evidence suggests happened here, or at least not according to the ME and the law enforcement officers who have investigated this case from the beginning. With so many questions swirling, the complete story of Dr. Robert Stonebreaker's death remains unknown. What does the forensic evidence suggest to you? If you know something, anything, about what happened that night in Rancho Santa Fe, it's time to speak up. Your tip could break the case open. The investigators handling this matter with the San Diego County Sheriff's Department urge you. You can call the San Diego County Sheriff's Homicide Unit at 858-974-2321. Leave a message if prompted and ask for case file Stonebreaker. Or submit an anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers of San Diego County. 888-580-8477. If you prefer digital, you can go to crimestoppers-sd.org and reference tip code 20-100. Hopefully, someday, we will get to the bottom of this. We will all know what happened to Robert. I think somewhere in the forensic evidence, the truth is still waiting. It only needs the right set of eyes to see it. Forensic Tales is a Rockefeller audio production. The show is written and produced by me, Courtney Fretwell. If you'd like to help create compelling new cases, fund research, and assist with production and editing costs, you can support the show with a small monthly contribution. In return, you'll become one of the first to listen to new ad-free episodes and gain access to exclusive content. To learn more, visit patreon.com/Forensic Tales. Forensic Tales is made possible by our Patreon producers, Tony A., Sherry A., Nicola, Megan G., Ureli, Jerry, Ann F., Carol A., Shannon D., Lois B., Lynn H., Danielle D., Lucretia W., Brett R., Luz Raquel, and Courtney C. If you'd like to become a producer of the show, head over to our Patreon page or email me at courtney@forensictales.com. For a complete list of sources used in this episode, please visit forensictales.com. Thank you for listening and see you next week. Until then, remember, not all stories have happy endings.